What's up, guys? We on Ditmars at 73rd Street. So a lot of people ask me about New York, right? And ask me about the prices in New York. So I was at the grocery store today, and I heard one of the guys were talking about different states that you could live in and stuff like that. I want to add on to what he was saying. It depends on the sales tax of the state. If you work at, let's say you work in New York and you're making enough money in New York, but if you go to another state, their income is lower than the sales. It depends on the sales tax that you live in. So let's say if I live in Connecticut and I work in New York, I could still work in New York and live in Connecticut though, because the sales taxes is higher in Connecticut than New York. You know what I'm saying? Like I was saying, yeah. So the sales taxes are like, if I live in Connecticut and I work in New York, the sales taxes is higher in New York than Connecticut, because Connecticut, you could live in Connecticut, but you can't work in Connecticut because the jobs in Connecticut are lower than New York. So a lot of police officers, they live in Pennsylvania and they work in Pennsylvania and they come to New York to work, because the sales taxes in Pennsylvania is not that good. The living expense is not that good. If you live in Philadelphia, you're not going to get jobs out there because the job system is not that great in Philadelphia than New York. So a lot of people ended up moving back to New York, because New York, their tax rate is higher than a certain sales tax rate. So you talk about tax cuts, you talk about all those stuff like that. But if you move to different states, you're not gonna get the higher sales tax that you're getting in New York. You know what I'm saying? So my advice to people: stay in New York. If you want to move, you could move to a state and come to New York to work. But if you do the post office and you apply for a post office job in another state, you're not gonna get that. You're not gonna get the higher income that you're making. You're not gonna get that minimum wage that you're making in New York. So just to let you know, if you move to another state, you're not gonna pick up. If you transfer to another state, your family members just convince you to move to Pennsylvania and all that stuff. I tell you, don't listen to what they say, because at the end of the day, you're gonna know. Listen, you're gonna know that I'm right. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna know that I'm right, because you're listening to people, to what they're saying, but what they're saying, it doesn't make any sense to you. So I suggest to people, don't follow in your family footsteps. Lead your own self. So let me tell you something about Fight Fest Production Management International. Fight Fest Production Management International is an entrepreneurial film company that I'm actually creating. I also design products as well for the company. And listen, I'm actually traveling to Connecticut to promote my brand. I'll be in Connecticut in July. I don't know the date yet. I'll announce it on my show, the mental health show. I will be announcing that I'll be traveling to Connecticut. I'll be traveling to Milford, Connecticut, and I'll be filming my commercial and shooting out in Connecticut. The one thing about Connecticut is that I like it out there, and I'm looking into future plans of moving out to Connecticut and in New Jersey. I'm building up 2 houses in New Jersey and Connecticut. So the thing about it is, with New York, my mother said she'll stay in New York, but I will not stay in New York that long. I will move to Connecticut and then travel to Jersey for vacation. So that will be me, you know. But I'm not gonna risk it and risk my career to pack up and move to another state, you know. So I just think that we have to prioritize what we're doing, and we actually pick up what we're doing, because if you prioritize what we're doing, you actually get full results of what you're going to do, accomplish, achieve, But a lot of people's like, yo, listen, I'm going to make it, but some people make it, and when they move to another state, they fall back into their old ways. You know what I'm saying? So you're not going to talk about living in another state if you know you're going to fall back in your old ways. So you just got to realize that you gotta have a knowledge and respect for a person that will deal with your situation. And I just encourage people that if your family members tell you to move to another state, don't listen to what they're saying, because at the end of the day, when you visit the state, you will understand what I'm talking about. I visit Pennsylvania a lot of times. I have family members out there, and they ended up moving back to New York. Yeah. because the state the sales tax is high. And guess what? Guess what happens now? You're living in a state where you're not gonna get the full service that you get. If you receive a public assistance out in Pennsylvania, they're gonna require you to go to work. They're gonna require you to get assistance. You're not gonna get that much. You're not gonna make that much money in Pennsylvania if you come to New York. So that's the reason why I tell people, listen, if you're doing certain things like that, I suggest you follow your heart and lead into your right understanding. I understand that your heart is telling you to do certain things, but your mind, you gotta follow your mind and make your mind make the decision for you. I think that was the best way to tell you this, that I ain't gonna talk for people, and that's the reason why I didn't want to get into that conversation at the grocery store, because I feel like if I get into the conversation, it would have been they will not listen. And I think that when you listen, you understand where I'm coming from, you know? Massachusetts is the same thing. All the states, them is the same thing. They have different laws. And if you follow one law, they're not gonna, let's see, a lot of people end up back in New York. You see where they're living at? A lot of people end up back in New York. It is mental health. Yes, this is mental health that I'm doing. I'm a community producer, supervisor, and I go to these areas and I see what goes on in the community. You understand what I'm saying? And in the community, people end up living in these apartments here because they used to live in Washington. There's a lot of people who used to live in Washington, Georgia, Florida, and they end up moving back to New York because the income tax is low. The sales tax is low. You understand? Your family members need to stop telling you to move someplace, and then it depends on the sales tax. It depends on the sales tax and the housing rate. And if you look at the housing rate, you look at what the housing rate is. The housing rate is high or low. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying to you. Follow your heart and it will lead to the right understanding. So I'm Shamika Samuels, and I'm the CEO of Fight Fest Production International Management. I'm also the producer of the Mental Health Show. You can tune in on the Mental Health Show on the Manhattan Neighborhood Networks on Channel 2 on the Lifestyle Channel. All right, so I'm going to finish up my shift. I'll be back later on to share you more. All right? Thank you.